I guess we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Brad Neish. I work at HARC, and today we're just going to talk briefly about a little web application we developed that we call the Texas Coastal Resource Viewer. Got a few slides. I'm going to talk about who HARC is, why we're doing this project. I'm going to dive into the data a little bit, talk about the technologies I used, then we're going to do a live demo of the app. We're going to breeze through it pretty quick, then we'll open up to questions and get you guys out of here and on to dinner. All right, so HARC stands for the Houston Advanced Research Center. We are a nonprofit, independent research hub. We do, our elevator pitch is energy, air, and water issues focused on building a sustainable future. So that's us. My personal past experience, I don't consider myself a developer, so apologies to anyone that actually knows what they're doing. But in the course of my work, we often build web apps to engage the public with our data and educate them. So I've built several apps during my time there, mostly using the ArcGIS API for JavaScript, which is a serviceable API, but I've always wanted to kind of dive into the open source, use Leaflet, get away from Dojo. So I thought this would be a good project to do that. So the genesis of our current project is this old coastal waterbird app that was developed about 5 or 6 years ago, I believe, before I showed up. It's still popular, it's still used today. Basically, it's a way to, look at bird population counts over time in different areas, aggregated to counties and bays. We wanted to update the app because the data is old, and also just the interface is old and outdated. Just updating the data is hard to do because all the graphs and data is pre-generated and it's not interactive, So we wanted to update it. So for the new app, we decided to not only include bird data, but also include data on fish and data on water quality. Our bird data comes from the Texas Colonial Waterbird Society, and it's based on volunteers, basically members of the Audubon Society, bird enthusiasts, they observe and they count and they do a good job, but we need to recognize the caveats in the data that it's has observer bias, it's incomplete coverage, et cetera, et cetera. It's not necessarily an absolute count, but an estimation of bird over time. And some of the collaborators include the Audubon Society, several universities, federal agencies, volunteers, and nonprofits. And then one of the reasons we like to do this app is because to get the data from the society, you have to fill out a written request. You send it in, and then you wait, and then they send you back a spreadsheet. And one of the things we like to do is, allow for public engagement and make things as easy as possible. All right, so the fish data comes from Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, Coastal Fisheries Division Resource Monitoring Program. Going back to 1976, they've done systematic survey sampling throughout all the bays in Texas. And in every sample, they include every organism that comes up in their catches. So, mostly fish, but it can include, land animals that have fallen in the bay, or really kind of lots of interesting things. There's 10 major estuarine systems and 5 Gulf areas that it covers. So like I said, it goes back to 1976. Again, it's not available online. You have to put in a written request to TPWD. It comes in 5 separate CSV files for each year. It also includes some water quality data along with the samples. Like I said, they include every species that they encounter in their catch, which so far includes over 1,200 different species. And then one of the hard-to-use parts of the data is that they like to include length. So for the first 20 of every species they catch, they include the length. And then after that, the record just includes the remaining count. So we process it and we put it into a SQL database. There's over 8 million records, plus separate tables for the areas, the species, the gear names, etc. All right. And our water quality data comes from the Texas Clean Rivers Program, sponsored by TCEQ. They do provide it online, but the link is really buried and hard to find. And then you have to download by basin and fill out their little form. So again, we do that value added to do all that for you. That data goes back to 1968. So around 11 million records from over 9,000 stations, measuring 4,800 different parameters. For the purposes of this app, we've just chosen kind of the top 4 parameters that we think are the most useful and easy to understand. Just to give you guys an idea about Texas, if you're not from there, there's 18 coastal counties and 10 major bay systems. We're in Houston, which is the Galveston Bay System. All right, so serving the data for this app. We are an Esri house, so we already have ArcGIS for Server, so that's what we use to serve it. So this is a hybrid solution. Fortunately, Esri provides Esri Leaflet on their GitHub, which makes it really easy to interact with the Esri server to get the data that we need out of it. All right, so this map uses, it looks like a lot, but it's really pretty simple. So the Leaflet is obviously the mapping library. I use MapBox maps. They make beautiful tile layers that I really like to use. Bootstrap is to provide the responsive aspect. So one of the things we want to do with this app is make it usable for people both on their desktop computers and using tablets or other mobile devices, since that's how a lot of people use the web these days. That uses jQuery, and then we also use C3, which is based on D3, to do the charting aspect. We also link out to the Audubon field guide, and we use a lot of Getty embedded images. I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but Getty provides the use of a lot of their images for free to be used in embedding and web applications, so you can get some really great pictures to use. All right, and then just a quick overview. This is basically all the Leaflet code. It's super easy and simple to use, just a few lines of code, and that's all the mapping being done. All right, so we'll just go into a live demonstration here. When you first open up the app, this is what you see, and we default to birds because that's what the original app was. The blue dots are the bays, and then the green dots are counties. And you can also switch over and just see by the actual each individual bird colony. And then you can click on an area, and it come over here, and you see the birds that we have data for in that county. When you hover over, you can see a nice image of each bird. You can click on this little information dot, and it opens up the Audubon field guide, so you can learn more about the bird and its habitat, what it likes to eat. It's a great resource. And then you can click on a bird, and it'll pull up the graph, and you can kind of see the trends over time. You can hover over and get actual counts for each year. This is all the charts done with C3, which is a really easy chart abstraction library it's driven by D3, so it's really beautiful and easy to use. And you can turn on all the data if you want, but it gets a little messy. Let's see here. All right. And then another thing we can do is you can export the data for that county as a CSV. That way, not only do you get the chart, but you can, that's not going to work. But you can get the actual raw data, so you can do whatever you want with it yourself. And, it's pretty similar for the other things for fish. So some of the interesting things with the fish data is there's 4 different gears that the TPWD goes through, so you can choose a specific gear. So like shrimp trawl is, they're mostly looking for the shrimp, although shrimp will show up in other catches. And you can see the trends over time, see the counts. Another thing we have here is when we do our analysis to look at trends, we don't just look at the raw numbers, we look at what we call CPUE, which is catch per unit area or unit effort. So basically it's normalized to 1 hour. So it's more of a apples to apples comparison between years. And again, you can export it as CSV. And then, so yeah, for the fish, you can do it by the major area or by the minor bays. So you can get to very specific little locations. Then we have the water quality. I think I might have crashed my app here. Give it a quick refresh. You can do it by station, by bay, or by stream segment. Now the way it's doing all of these aggregations is in the database being served from Esri, we just have raw records, and it's doing the out statistic, and it's aggregating on the fly, which will makes it really easy to add in other geographies if we wanted without changing the underlying data. You can see water temperature. For the water, we just allow you to look at one parameter at a time since they're not directly comparable, obviously. So that's gives you an idea of the app. So in Wrapup, Leaflet is awesome. It's really easy to use. If you're familiar with the Esri ArcGIS API, I think it's a lot better. You get away from Dojo, you use jQuery, it's lightweight, it's flexible, it's easy to integrate with Bootstrap and other libraries, which makes it really powerful. Like I said before, I really like the MapBox tiles. They make really beautiful tiles. And thanks to Bootstrap, you can have responsive design, which makes it work on all platforms. I can give you an example of that here. Let's see. If we exit full screen, as you shrink, what's showing up here? No, so if you look at it on your phone, instead of the chart covering half the screen, you just get a new button pops up and you can toggle the chart back and forth. So it works on small screens as well. So that's basically all I have. I'll open up the floor to any questions. Yeah. 2.5 months, but that wasn't full-time on this because I've got a million things I work on. But yeah, so not too bad. But yeah, this is just me. Yes. Okay, so you do a query and you say select by the records, and then the record has like a Galveston Bay attribute, for instance. And so we say select only Galveston Bay when you selected Galveston Bay, so it's based on whichever point you clicked. And then the server has capability to do aggregation, so you say group by year, and then it groups it by the year for that for each species, and then so that spits it back out. So the raw data is each individual record. We haven't done any pre-processing to get for each county or bay or minor colony or anything like that. Does anyone want to see any particular areas or birds or anything? All right. Well, thanks, guys.